Subscribe now for a chance to win a $20 Amazon gift card at the end of the month. All you gotta do is subscribe and comment on the video in the card above. Plus, you'll get notified on new scary stories the moment they release. What if life is hell? This world is a strange one. Life is full of pain and hardship, stress and loss, even while we're down in our times of sadness. Things beyond life show up to haunt us. Whether you believe ghosts are just hallucinations or real beings, they are terrifying to behold. The fear is always real. They come when you're weak. They come when you're alone. Prepare yourself for these allegedly real ghost stories. But first, have you seen a zombie in real life? Have you had a scary experience on spring break or St. Patrick's Day? You can send us your story at darknessprevails.org, and it might appear in a future video. Also, feel free to share any kind of creepy story you have. Now, can you handle these evil spirits? Number 1. The Room. Submitted by Jayden. I often spend the night or the weekend at my friend Sarah's house. Normally, we would hang out upstairs and then get to the basement for the night, as down there she has 2 huge couches we can sleep on. The way her basement is, when you get down the stairs, you are right in the middle of it, so everything is either on your right or on your left. To your right, there would be the television and couches, where we sleep, and in front of that there would be a little workplace with a computer. On the left, there is a very small bathroom, a room that is used for Sarah's nieces and nephews when they come over. And beside that room would be the room. It's not a particularly creepy room. There's only a huge bed, a closet, a big wardrobe, and a commode. Yet there's some atmosphere in there that makes the room scary. It's extremely uncomfortable just to look into the room from where you're standing. This is a feeling everyone that has ever gone in the room has had. So it can't only be me and my friends being crazy or just paranoid, whatever it was. We all believe there's something in this room, even if we cannot know what exactly it is. We have never seen anything, yet for some reason I've always assumed it was a woman. Maybe it's intuition or something else. I would be happy if I could say that this is all the room is about, just an irrational feeling of dread. But sadly, this is not the case. Many things happened in that room, around that room, in the whole house in general. First of all, this uneasy feeling you got from the room, it would always grow worse and worse at night. And the feeling would be felt everywhere around the house, spreading from the room, even with the lights turned on. So much so that we couldn't bear being in the basement when the door of this room was opened. We would have to shut it. Each night, we would take turns to close it, and each time we hated doing it. We always feared we would see something in the dark of the room, or getting our hand or arm grabbed by some unseen entity. Of course, all of this could just be us overreacting. But one day, as it was my turn to close the door, I felt unusually bad around it. For some reason, the feeling was stronger. I closed the door, and as soon as the door clicked shut, something fell somewhere inside the room with a loud noise. And there was nothing even close to that door, so it couldn't have been something leaning against the door or even the wall behind it. It sent chills down my spine. A while later, I was cleaning around the kitchen at around 10 p.m. or something like that. There was only me awake at the time, as Sarah's parents were gone and she was sleeping already. Everything was going fine. I was washing our dishes and replacing everything we had moved to make food, when suddenly, I felt as if I was being watched. And when I say watched, I mean that it felt like someone was standing right behind me, as if they were staring intensely at the back of my head. It felt the same as the energy from the room. There was no doubt about it. I did not feel good at all, and I wanted to scream and cry. But I didn't. I've heard that some spirits just want to scare you. So I tried to ignore it. I kept on cleaning and paid no attention at all to the feeling. After maybe 20 minutes of it, as quickly as it came, the feeling suddenly left. Maybe a month or so later, a boy named Maxime, Sarah, and I were just hanging out in the basement. We were watching TV and playing around on her computer, and for some reason we started talking about that one room. Maxime said that he too could feel something bad from it. I then spoke about my theory that there was a woman, and I could even say in which corner she would be. Maxime was curious, so we all stepped into the room. At the same moment, the phone upstairs rang, which made us all jump, and we walked out of the room. And when we did, the phone stopped ringing. It was just one ring alone, not consecutive rings like a phone usually would, and we know that no one had answered it. So we didn't go back in that room. Yet, this isn't what scares me the most about it. What really scares me the most is that on 2 occasions, I felt this nagging in the back of my head, like I needed to go to sleep in there. The first time it was just a feeling of, I want to sleep in that room. And when I did go to sleep in there, that feeling of dread wasn't as strong, though I had to sleep with the light on. It was weird, and I never understood why I had the feeling that I wanted to go in there. But nothing happened on that night. The second time, however, was far creepier, especially considering the reason I ended up in the room. It was Sarah's birthday, and we were having a sleepover with 5 or 6 other friends. We were all in the basement, separated in different places around and on the couches. It was getting really late, and only Jennifer and I were still awake and finishing the movie. At some point though, my breathing began to feel off, and it hurt. It was like a feeling of drowning. It was so vivid. I could even feel, or more like hallucinate, the water burning my lungs and throat. I was truly scared, and I really wanted it to stop. It was painful and terrifying. I looked at Jennifer and told her, I feel like I'm drowning. And then I stood up and walked over to the room. I closed the door behind me, and almost instantaneously the feeling left, and I nearly felt secure. I felt completely normal and even good in that room. I slept there that night, and I never felt scared until I woke up in the morning and realized the whole situation. What was happening to me? It wasn't normal. I have no idea what's in that room, but it sure is creepy, and I really hope that this thing doesn't try to lure me into its room ever again. But I know it will, and I'm so scared that it will make me feel like I'm drowning again, only to have me as company for the night. Number 2. Friday the 13th Creature. Submitted by Robbie. I live in a town just outside of Bath, England, and it was about a year ago or so when this happened. It was a Friday the 13th, and I love Friday 13ths, probably because I love anything and everything creepy. I'm really into paranormal stuff, and I watch paranormal shows all the time. Anyway, I was up at around 7:30 in the morning, getting ready for school. I had just finished my breakfast and was heading upstairs to clean my teeth. I was walking up the stairs and I looked through the wooden bars of the banister into my living room as the door was left open. I stopped and I stared. I was frozen as I stared at this animal. It had no face and it was on all fours and its skin was pale yellow. It had long black claws coming from its feet. It was there for less than a few seconds until it jumped unnaturally fast out of view from the doorway. I stood there absolutely petrified from what I just saw. After a few moments passed, once my heart rate slowed down, I moved my head into the direction of where it jumped so I could further see into the living room. And I saw nothing. Whatever it had been, it was gone. The speed at which it moved, though, was so unnatural. It was almost a blur when it jumped. My mom walked by. She saw that I looked shocked and a little scared, and asked me if I was okay. I said nothing, and just began walking upstairs again. I could not dismiss what I saw. How could any creature on this earth just disappear like that? And what even was that thing? I began to hope I was seeing things from being tired or paranoid. I carried on and got myself ready for school. I left and began to walk to school. I only live a few minutes away from it. I always walk with my earphones in, listening to music, so I don't really pay much attention to anything else. I walk onto this path, which was very open with some small houses to the left and an open grass field to the right. Ahead of me was a small paved car park for a social club, which was also up ahead. Ahead of that and to the right was a set of flats. As I approached this area, I looked over to the right and looked at the building of flats, and I was shocked to see that thing there again. It was just next to the building on the grass, and once again it jumped behind the building out of my view. And once again I found myself so scared, yet this time I didn't stop. I began to nearly run, and I didn't dare to look back to see if that thing was still there, let alone following me. The rest of the way to school, I was paranoid that that creature was still following me and stalking me. And when I got to school, I felt a bit more relaxed. I told my friend and a teacher at school about what I saw. My friend believed me, but the teacher wasn't as convinced. She said that it might be brain damage, which made me laugh, and it made me worry at the same time. Whatever it was, I didn't see it for the rest of the day, and I haven't seen it since, thank God. I don't really know what the creature was, and I don't know if it was my imagination running wild because it was the 13th, or if this thing was real and it was stalking me. The creature itself was unreal, and nothing on this planet can simply disappear like that. Was it the ghost of something, a creature of the paranormal? But I would love to know if anyone else has experienced anything like this, as I'm really doubting if it was even real. I'm just so glad that I've never seen it again, whatever that ghostly beast was. Number 3. What is in the attic? Submitted by Ain. When I was 8 years old, my sister and my mom moved to live with my grandmother due to my father beating my mother. The first few months there were fine in my grandmother's, but I remember when we would visit, there was something so strange about my cousin Lily's room. It never felt right. There was always a feeling of something watching you, as if someone was in there with you, even if you are alone. So my sister Ellie and I always thought that the room was haunted. Now, in her room, there was a door leading to the attic, and the attic itself was small and narrow. One day, we decided to play questions with whatever it was. We said to anything that would answer, to knock once for yes and 2 for no. Then we would ask questions like, is your name Jack or Mary? Stupid questions like that. Then we began to ask how long you've been here, and did you die here? And that's when we suddenly heard a knock above us. My sister and I jumped and we looked at each other. Did we just hear what we thought we did, or did we imagine it? So we asked, do you want to get out? And that's when we heard the sound of running in the attic, rapid footsteps quickly approaching the door to this room. And when we heard the sound of banging at the door, we ran out of the room as fast as we could and down the stairs. We never told our mom or grandmother, but we did tell our friend Jim, who lived up the road from us. He and his cousin came one day, and we all decided to ask questions again. But nothing weird happened that day, so eventually we left and decided to play outside. A few weeks passed. My mother, sister, and youngest and myself slept in the same room. It was my aunt's old room, and me and my sister believing the whole place was haunted now. We still slept there, thanks to the comfort of having family around. Like the other room, this one was very close to the attic. In fact, there was a single bed very close to the attic door in that room. My mother and sister slept on a double bed. Anyway, on this night, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I looked up to see a tall man wearing a top hat, but he was all black like a shadow. I could make out his shape, but none of his features. I closed my eyes tightly, hoping he didn't see me. I pulled the covers over my head. I didn't know what to do. Eventually, I got the courage to pull the covers down and to see if he was still there, but I didn't expect to see the form of his face inches from mine. I screamed, jumping out of my bed and jumping into my mother's, and of course, she was angry. She ended up switching spots with me, thinking that that's what I wanted, but I can tell you now that I did not sleep for the rest of the night. In the morning, I told my sister what I saw, and to my surprise, she told me she saw the same figure standing next to the wardrobe. Before that, I had been wondering the whole night if it was just a nightmare, but hearing her say this, it confirmed what I saw, and even if it was still a nightmare, the fact that we shared the same one was terrifying enough. We never told our family about anything we saw, and to this day they still don't know. It's been about 5 years now, and I'm still scared of both rooms. Luckily, we're moving soon, so I'll have to suck it up until then. Number 4. TV Ghost. Submitted by Vicky. I want to start off by saying that I've had many experiences in my life, but this one is by far one of the strangest things I've ever experienced. I was 13 years old at the time, and I was home alone. My grandmother was a Tupperware lady and had a demonstration she was going to do. It was around this time when computers were becoming a household thing, and the internet was really becoming popular. We had that good old dial-up, which was always fun. Anyways, I was expecting a friend to come over, but for some reason that I can't remember, she couldn't. I was used to being alone for a few hours at night, so it was really no big deal at first. I was minding my own business, playing on the computer, talking on AIM, when suddenly I heard the TV in the living room turn on. I was in my bedroom at the time, and I found this to be very odd since I was home alone. I walked out of my room and into the living room. Sure enough, the TV was on. I simply shrugged my shoulders and turned it off. But the moment I turned it off, I heard another TV come on in my bedroom. That's when I was beginning to feel weird about the whole situation. I quickly made my way to my room and turned that TV off. But again, the living room TV came on, and at this point I was honestly freaking out. I ran and turned off the living room TV, and of course the one in my bedroom came on again. I was freaking out so bad that at this point I was crying. I ran into my room and turned off the TV, and then a third and final time the living room TV turned on again. I walked back to the living room, and as I turned it off, I begged whoever it was to please stop messing with me. And finally, the turning on of the TVs finally stopped. I called my friend right away and begged her to come over. I did not want to be alone at that moment. I was hysterical and crying. Luckily, she was able to convince her mom and let her come over, and she stayed with me until my grandmother finally got home. After that night, I really couldn't be alone anymore. To avoid it, I always tried to have a friend over, or tried to be on the phone with a friend, or even went over to a friend's house. I was absolutely terrified to be home alone, and to this day, I still feel uneasy being left alone, and I'm almost 30 now. In this day and age, with all these electronics laying around that everyone has, it truly makes me feel uneasy to be home alone. Say what you will, this experience to me was horrifying. Number 5. My house is haunted. Submitted by Isa. My first encounter happened about 8 months ago. I was lying down trying to fall asleep. I had my computer on playing a TV show. I always had to have my background noise. So with the computer open, there was a little bit of light, but not enough to completely light up my room. I was lying on my back when I suddenly heard a loud sound of a motorcycle or car driving by. I lifted up my head to see the car light bouncing off my room, and as it lit everything up, I thought I saw for a moment something in the corner of my room. I thought for sure that it was just the shadow of something from the car light. The car beam slowly faded away, and the fear swept over me when I realized that the car was long gone. I was now certain that something was standing in the corner of my room, and I knew that I was in a state of fear because whatever it was slowly began to move towards me. The detail that made me know that it was not human was when it was moving towards me, there was no movement or steps or anything of the sort. The way it moved, it was like it was gliding across the floor. It was coming closer until it was basically leaning over me, standing next to my bed. I felt a frigid chill lay over me. I pulled my blankets over my face, and when I peeked my eyes out to see if that thing was still there, it was gone. I was relieved, and I tried my best to get back to bed, but I simply couldn't stop wondering if that thing would come back. Even still, every night, I get a little bit more worried that whatever it was will come back again. My next experience was only 1 to 2 weeks ago. I was in my room with my door open, waiting for my mom to come home. I was watching some YouTube videos. I had just finished a video when I heard a car pull into the driveway. I got up and waited for a second because something felt off. Something just didn't feel right. I heard the front door open. Still skeptical, I slowly headed downstairs. I heard my mom walking through the house, heading toward the living room. I got downstairs and checked around, but there was nobody home. When I checked the driveway and saw that no one had pulled in, I bolted back upstairs, locked my door, and dove into my room. The sound of someone walking in the house, the sound of someone pulling up in the driveway. It was plain as day. I know I didn't hallucinate it. Then I began to hear those footsteps again, now going back towards the door. The door opens and closes. I can hear it. And whatever was downstairs left. Again, I crept downstairs. I should mention that when this happened, it was snowing outside. So if someone really was there and went outside, I would see wet spots or rock salt on the floor. But when I got downstairs, there was nothing on the floor. They were perfectly clean. Ever since then, I never feel completely alone when I'm home alone. And number 6, Death Screams and Demons, submitted by Cat M. This story happened to my younger brother, Wyatt. One night last year in 2016, my teenage brother fell asleep after a long night of gaming with his friend from England. At 3:16 a.m., I woke up with my heart pounding out of my chest, and at first I didn't know why. Then I heard it. My brother was screaming. It was so loud and full of dread. The only way I know how to describe it was a death scream. I remember getting out of bed and going to my bedroom door so fast I didn't even register what was going on, until I saw my brother running up the stairs. He was crying and screaming. My dad, so surprised and frightened, he was halfway downstairs himself with a shotgun. He had assumed that someone broke into the house. Through tears, my brother managed a few half sentences. I saw something. There was something in the living room by the door. After making sure there was not a physical intruder in the house, my dad came back to my brother, who had managed to stop crying and resume breathing normally. He was then able to tell us what happened. I think I was asleep and dreaming, but it wasn't a normal dream. I was in the house and I saw my body on the couch. I was still sleeping. I walked outside, and when I came back in, something followed me. I saw it by the kitchen. It was tall, and it had a white face with spiky hair. It made a terrifying growling noise. I screamed and ran over to my body and jumped back in it. And when I did, I woke up, and I was still screaming. At first, I passed it off as a nightmare. I thought my brother had just stayed up too late. Maybe he had watched Insidious with his friend over Skype. But over the next few days, it was clear to me that he was really shaken. He barely slept, and he began to sleep on the floor in my parents' room. About a week after the first incident, we were downstairs watching TV together, and he fell asleep. He was barely out for like 10 minutes when his whole body began to jerk, and he woke up screaming again. As it happened, I could feel my skin turn to goose flesh. When he calmed down enough for me to ask him what was wrong, he said that he saw his body again, but this time he didn't leave the house. He said he went to touch his body to shake himself awake, and in the reflection of our mom's glass china hutch doors, he saw the white face of some demon. It had a white face with stringy hair hanging from it, and its eyes were solid black. At this point, I was really worried for my brother. As he said this, he was looking around. He seemed so jumpy and terrified. These occurrences were keeping him from sleeping, and it was really starting to put me on edge. After seeing the effect that it had on my brother, my parents informed our pastor at church. He informed us that some sort of evil entity has invaded our house. He prayed for my brother and gave us a bottle of holy oil to anoint our home and ourselves with. We poured that stuff liberally around the doorways in the house and the windows and dabbed some on ourselves. So far, so good. My brother hasn't had any other out-of-body experiences, but after everything that has happened, I can't help but feel as scared as my brother looked. Are ghosts really the souls of the dead? Are they remnants of times past? Or maybe they are the shimmer of a dimension parallel to our own? If one of these are true though, then that leaves an eerie question at the back of my mind. Why do these entities behave so horrifically? I mean, if they really are just spirits of our past loved ones, why do they hide in the closet, peeking out from behind the door to watch you sleep at night? Good night. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget, you can send us your zombie encounters and creepy spring break or St. Patrick's Day experiences. Thanks. You guys are the best.